Hello, I'm Heather at Uminami Farm. It is April 13th, 2024, and we are in a season of change. The overwintered crops are almost done. We've been doing a boatload of transplanting, and some of our fruit trees are flowering. And so I'd like to just take you and show you a little bit of what's happening right now. All right, here we are in Sento House, which is our big greenhouse near the driveway when you come into the farm. We had a massive transplant day here on Wednesday. We transplanted, I think, around 1,500, more than 1,500 onion seedlings. That's these guys right here. It was a boatload of work. We do them in this plastic mulch, which we've actually been using for more than a decade. It came from Japan pre-cut with the holes for the onions, and this really helps us to keep enough water on them and also to keep the weeding down. And yeah, it's a bit of work to put it in and take it out at the end of the season, but it really saves us a lot in the meantime. With these onions, one thing we also have to remember when we're transplanting is that even though they look so similar, bulb onions and green onions are very different in the way you transplant them. With the bulb onions, we actually want to transplant them quite shallow so that the little bulb is near the surface of the soil. If this was a green onion, we would have transplanted it like all the way up to here because we would be going for the long thin stem and leaves on top. But these guys, we transplant them quite shallow. And so we don't normally cover them with the floating row cover with the Rime, but I'm experimenting with the Rime this year just to see if it will keep the moisture in more. Because these guys need a lot of water, but as you can see, they don't exactly have the leaf mass to shade the soil and keep the sun from evaporating everything. Speaking of water, we also had an experiment this year, which we'll see how it goes, but one of the workers had an idea that instead of putting liquid fertilizer in the soil first, the way we normally do, we could just watered the liquid fertilizer, which is like a fish emulsion and kelp mix, directly on the cell tray, transplant them, and then just we could either, in some cases, give fertilizer afterwards, or in this case, we actually just turned on the drip tape and let the drip irrigation finish watering them in. So we'll see if that works. Hopefully it'll be enough nutrients. We might have to come back and side dress later, but we'll see how it goes. It sure saved us a lot of time when we were transplanting the other day, which was fantastic. So thanks to a great idea from Madoka, we were able to get that done a lot more quickly. All right, so peas. The same day we transplanted these, we also transplanted peas outside. Our indoor peas right here, not exactly ready to flower yet, but we're really hopeful that by May, sometime we'll be able to start having snow peas in the box program and then later in Fujiya and our other outlets. In the meantime, I think these guys probably need to get tied up again sometime soon. We always come through and tie them up with the string because even though they're able to grab the net, but they don't necessarily grab strongly enough and they'll tend to sprawl to either side. So someone will probably be coming through this week again to put another row of twine and just keep them nice up against the net, nice and tall like that. So one step at a time. Oh no, do I see some aphids there? Oh no, not aphids, thank goodness. I don't know what those brown spots are, but they're not aphids. So yeah, you never know. We do have these, and in Japanese they're called mamezomushi. It's it's some kind of weevil. It's a little weevil that likes to eat the edge of the pea leaves. Thankfully, the peas seem to be staying ahead of them. And I guess that's really a key in organic pest management is it's just sort of like, who's faster, the pest or the plant? If the plant is fast enough, you don't need to worry too much about the pest. So anyways, as I do a little bit of weeding here, speaking of pests, thankfully these guys seem really nice and healthy. Hopefully we'll have some peas for you before long. It's been a week or so now since we transplanted our zucchini. It might be 2 weeks. I apologize, I forgot to look up the exact dates. But they are getting settled into the greenhouse. We are still having this problem where they tend to wilt during the day. I've been keeping the floating row cover on just because it does seem to give them some shade and help them to wilt less than they otherwise would. Like they always perk up by the morning, but yeah, in the hot, on the warm days they still do tend to go like this. So I'm really hopeful that they're going to revive. We did have a problem with symphyllans in this greenhouse, which I think I talked about before in a previous video. So it's possible that there could be bugs chewing on their roots, and that's part of why they're not establishing as well as we'd like. That being said, they are growing. They've grown substantially since we first planted them, And like I said, every morning they revive, even if they wilt during the day. So hopefully this is all going to come together. We've got the side open so they have some ventilation. Got the water going right now, so hopefully they'll stay in it nice and moist. And yeah, if everything goes okay, another month or so maybe for zucchini, but we'll see how it goes. Also time for fuki. We're actually just on the other side of the peas we were just looking at in a moment ago there. This is a perennial crop. It's been here for 15, 20 years kind of a thing. Fuki is this gorgeous, lovely plant that has a perennial rhizome just under the surface of the soil. And then in the spring, it puts up these beautiful long leaf stalks. And this is actually the part that we eat. So we cut them somewhere down here or so. And then we'll sell them either with or without the leaf. The way we prepare this is not really quite like any other vegetable. It is also known as sweet coltsfoot. So if you know that plant from, other growing traditions, then you might have had a chance to eat it before. What we do with this one is we peel the fibers out of the skin. It's kind of like how celery has those long fibers, but they're all in this case, they're all the way around. We peel the fibers out of the skin and then we blanch it. And then you can throw it in a stir fry. You can throw it in soup of some kind or some kind of like little, animono, like a lightly cooked kind of little stew or something like this. The leaf we can actually chop up and cook with soy sauce and mirin and miso and make a condiment to go with rice. I won't attempt to give you the recipe for that right now. It's a dish I really enjoy, but I'm not great at making it myself, so I'll let somebody else do the teaching on that one. But if you're in the box program, you might be seeing some of these in your vegetable box. Hiromi, who's one of the farm workers, just finished making up a really nice info card, and so we'll try to get the info cards to anyone who might like a little bit of more tips about how to use this one. But now's the season. This is a real taste of spring, and I just love seeing them. They look almost like water lilies kind of a thing. Sadly, they are infested with this morning glory. I think it's also known as bindweed. These guys are a bugger. I remember as a kid I loved this plant with its like big white trumpet-shaped flowers, and I still think they're beautiful, but it's just that they're highly invasive and they really take over. This is not too bad because a volunteer just finished going through here, but you can see how they kind of grow up to the surface and then they'll just spread all over everything and grab all the light they can. We actually have a problem because we tried transplanting some fuki to another bed on the other side of the driveway outdoors. And unfortunately, the fuki died, but the morning glory that hitched a ride along with it lived. I'll talk a bit more about that later, though. We'll look at a few other things first. So as I said earlier, we're in a real transition season right now. The overwintered crops are almost completely finished. This is our overwintered chard, and as you can see, instead of being all kind of like, this one still looks like, the winter chard more or less. Like it's relatively still with the leaves coming out close to the ground, but even here you can kind of see this little stem starting to form, this starting to elongate. They'll all gradually start to look like this with the long stem on them. The leaves start to change shape. Instead of being round at the end, they get pointy. These guys are getting ready to flower. They're biennials. It's their time. Their bodies are telling them it's time to make seeds. So this crop is gradually coming to an end. What we've been doing is we're still continuing to harvest the outer leaves. But then when, say, this plant, it's very likely the next time we harvest, we might actually just cut the center right here and then sell this whole cluster of small leaves together. So if you're in the box program and or say you're buying our vegetables at Sea Bluff Farm or somewhere like this, and you see this, that's what's happened. Is what we've done is as the plant is getting ready to flower, before it gets all the way tall like this, which by the time the leaves get really pointy and it gets really tall like this, the flavor has usually changed. So while it's still relatively short, we might cut and then make a bunch using those clusters, which are actually really beautiful, lovely, tender leaves, but sometimes people just don't know what they're getting. It's still Swiss chard, it's just a different part of the same. So I mentioned earlier about morning glory on the fuki back in the Sento greenhouse. So I mentioned how we had long ago tried to transplant some of the fuki to, not right here, but just beyond this apple tree. And unfortunately, the morning glory hitched a ride. It has now spread through this grassy area, which is not the end of the world. I mean, it's a grassy area. We mow it from time to time. could theoretically be all right. But what I've noticed over the years is that its reach is gradually expanding, gradually expanding, gradually expanding. And the really dangerous thing is that it's now actually in danger of entering this field. You can see here at the very edge, there's a few, here's some shoots. It's actually quite a long, oh, look at that, quite a long rhizome there. And here again too. That's fairly, you know, I pulled these up, but there's lots more underground where this came from. I'm not seeing any shoots down here on this field right now, but I have seen them in the past. And so we're just realizing that we have to get really hyper vigilant about making sure that this doesn't find its way into some of the fields that we use for growing greens during the summer and stuff like this. It's not impossible to coexist with morning glory. We do grow a variety of crops in Cento House where morning glory is everywhere, but it just makes everyone's life a whole lot harder. And so instead of putting a boatload of time into weeding the field, we're trying to put some effort now into making sure that it doesn't spread beyond this zone. That is something that we will just have to keep at this year. We're really grateful for our volunteer Jim, who I didn't tell him he was going to be mentioned, but he's behind the camera right now, who's been working to pull some of it out. So hopefully we'll be able to do that. I had hoped that during the winter I might be able to do some more research about morning glory control strategies, and I was able to do some, but not as much as I would have hoped. So that's just something we're going to have to refine as time goes by, because it's not going away. But here we are. It's spring. The morning glory might be growing, but everything else is growing too. It's a beautiful sunny day. Lots of work to do, but it's good. It's good. And we really look forward to being able to share the fruits of the season with you. So thank you for watching, and we look forward to next time. Bye for now.